least that's what I'm trying to tell myself. I'm not a big fan of horror, but she also kind of befriends them. Why can't I say that? I don't know, I was just kind of disappointed in this one, but the last page completely shocked me and I was not expecting that at all. Hey, hi, hello. Welcome back to my channel. My name's Alisha, and in today's video, we're going to be discussing the 7 books I read in April. So this book was not as good of a reading month as previous months this year, and I don't mean like, I shouldn't say as good, because it was still, like, I still had some 5 stars and I still read a lot of good books. But what I meant was I didn't read as many books, and I probably shouldn't be judging myself on if it was a good reading month on how many books I read. So I shouldn't say that. What I should say is I didn't read as many books this month as I have in previous months, but that's okay because I'm really trying not to care about how many books I read this year. I'm just trying to enjoy what I'm currently reading. So I read a variety of, I'd say, fantasy. Did I read any romance? I don't think so, but fantasy and a lot of young adult thriller mystery stuff. So let's jump in. So the first book I finished in the month of April was Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers by Jesse Q. Sutanto. This book follows our main character Vera, who is an elderly woman who owns a tea shop in San Francisco, and one morning she comes down to find that there is a dead body in the middle of her shop. And she ends up reporting it to the police, and for whatever reason she doesn't believe that the police are investigating the crime scene properly, so she decides to take matters into her own hands. And the other characters in the book are 4 suspects who are somehow tied to the victim, and we also follow their POVs as well. And during Vera's investigation, she not only digs into these other 4 suspects' backgrounds, but she also kind of befriends them. So things get a little bit sticky, and we have to figure out who had the motive and the means to commit this murder. I have absolutely loved every other book by this author that I've read so far this year. She's a new author to me this year, and I was highly anticipating this book coming out back in March, so I was very excited to read it and get my hands on it. And I would say that I loved all of her character development. I think Jessie does a really good job developing all of her characters in her books. They all feel very real, including this one. And I loved the dynamics between the different characters and how we got to see not only into Vera's life, but into these other 4 suspects' lives as well. We really felt their motives, and we really felt kind of what they were going through at the time. However, I would say that the pacing in this book felt off compared to some of her other books, and it just dragged throughout the middle a little bit. I ended up giving this book 3.75 stars. The next book I read was Why can't I say that? The next book I read was How to Survive Your Murder, pronounce every syllable. How to Survive Your Murder by Danielle Valentine. This book follows our main character Alice, who was the sole witness to her sister's murder at a Halloween party the year before. Since her sister's murder, Alice's life has kind of completely gone awry. Her parents have gotten divorced. She lives in a crappy apartment. She's lost all of her best friends, and life just generally sucks for her. So the morning of the trial, she's in the bathroom trying to collect herself when she gets knocked out and somehow wakes up the year before on the morning of the murder, and now she has the opportunity to change everything. Now is her chance to change the events of that night and save her sister before midnight. We follow along with Alice as she relives the worst night of her life in order to try and save her sister and return her life back to normal. Honestly, I had so much fun with this one. I had been in a massive reading slump at the time, trying to trudge my way through multiple fantasy books, and this was exactly what I needed to kind of reset my brain and just have fun with reading again. Now, I'm not a big fan of horror at all. I don't really watch horror movies. I don't really read horror books, and this book is definitely considered YA horror, but I would say it's very campy. It's fun. It's got a lot of slasher tropes and a lot of 90s horror movie references in it. The references probably went over my head, but I don't think that deterred from my enjoyment of the book. And if you understand those references, I think it would only add to that for you. If you consume a lot of this genre, you might find it as trying too hard, but I just had fun with it, and I highly recommend it if you're looking for something fast-paced. I did guess some of the plot twists early on, but the last page completely shocked me, and I was not expecting that at all. I gave this a full 5 stars. The next book I read was Dead Girls Can't Tell Secrets by Chelsea Icasso. I'm sure I'm butchering that, but it's going to be on the screen, so I'm very sorry if I that I butchered that. This book follows Savannah, whose sister Piper was in a strange hiking accident the month before, and things are not looking good for Piper. The doctors don't believe that she will ever wake up. One day while at school, Savannah encounters some evidence that makes her believe that maybe Piper's accident wasn't an accident after all. So in order to get some answers, Savannah joins the school's wilderness club that Piper was a part of to see what she can find out. The club is scheduled to have a weekend camping trip at the same mountain that her sister had her accident. So Savannah is hoping that by going along and talking to the other people in the club that she can get some answers. However, everyone in the club is acting very strangely and keeping secrets of their own about what happened that day, but Savannah also has her secrets that she's keeping as well. Honestly, I don't remember a ton about this book. I did give it 4 stars and I read it all in one day, so I must have enjoyed it, but I've been reading a lot of young adult thrillers. Luna? But I've been reading a lot of young adult thrillers and they're all just starting to kind of melt together in my brain. So I would recommend it as a palate cleanser, and if you're looking for something fast-paced and quick instead of reading a bunch of heavy, other stuff. The next book I read was Blood Debts by Terry J. Benton Walker. This book is the author's debut fantasy novel and is set in a magical New Orleans. Foot's asleep. We follow twins Chris and Clem, who are heirs to a magical, powerful... This book is the author's debut fantasy novel and it is set in a magical New Orleans where we follow twin heirs to a magical and powerful but dethroned family. The twins, Chris and Clem, used to be best friends, but because of previous events, they're barely even speaking to each other right now. On the 30th anniversary of a historical magical massacre in the community, the twins are not only grieving the death of their father, but they are caring for their sick mother until one morning they find something and discover that their mother isn't sick, she's been cursed this whole time. So now Chris and Clem have to put aside their differences to not only figure out who cursed their mother and why, but try to solve a decades-old murder that led to the events of the magical massacre and sparked the tension between the magical and non-magical communities in the first place. This book deals with a lot of heavy topics, including homophobia, grief, racism, toxic relationships, and more. I would recommend looking up content warnings for any book before picking it up. The twins Chris and Clem in this book were extremely well written and well developed. I enjoyed reading their story and going on their journey throughout the book. However, there were so many other side characters in this book that weren't as well developed that I just ended up getting confused on who was who and getting lost on what we were doing. The main plot was very interesting and kept me reading. However, there was a side plot with one of the twins, Clem, that I didn't understand what we were doing. It does kind of wrap up into the main plot towards the end of the book and you figure out what's going on, but until then it kept taking me out of the story because I didn't understand what we were doing. I liked Chris's arc throughout the story and I was excited to see where she ended up by the end of the book. There is a sequel coming out in April of next year called Blood Justice, but that's all the information that's out there right now about it. I gave this book 4.25 stars. The next 2 books I read are The Golden Spoon and King of Scars, and I've pretty much given my full thoughts on these in a previous vlog that I can link below, but I'll give you a brief description and my star ratings right now. The Golden Spoon is set in an American version of the Great British Bake Off, and it's a cozy mystery that takes place on the set of this TV show. We follow 6 contestants and the host, and we get POVs for each of them. The POVs flip between current and past versions of each of these characters. The plot is basically that these contestants are on the TV show and then one morning there is a dead body that's found in the tent and we have to figure out between past and current POVs what happened and who the dead body is. You don't know who it is until the end. I'm sorry, The Golden Spoon is by Jessie Maxwell. And then the other book is King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo. This book follows Nikolai, Zoya, and Nina after the events of Crooked Kingdom, and I don't want to give any other information away because it would be a huge spoiler for the rest of the Grishaverse. I did give this one 4.25 stars, and I gave Golden Spoon 3.5 stars if I didn't say that already. And the last book that I read in April was The Ashes in the Star-Cursed King by Carissa Broadbent. This book is the sequel to The Serpent in the Wings of Night and the second-ish book in the Crowns of Nyaxia series. I say ish because there's a novella out currently that takes place before the events of this one, and then there's also, I think, other side books coming out. It can be confusing if you don't, but just know that this book takes place after the events of The Serpent in the Wings of Night. I don't want to say anything else about the synopsis because obviously, again, it would be a spoiler for Serpent, but I will say that the main Crowns of Nyaxia series is 6 books, and this is the second one, which wraps up the Nightborn duet, who follows the same main characters that we see in Serpent in the Wings of Night, Oriah and Rain. The other 4 books will follow other main characters. If you've watched any of my other videos, you would know I was highly anticipating this book, and I'm bummed to say that it just didn't live up to the hype, which I'm not surprised about because many times if there's a highly loved book, then the sequel or just sequels in general don't tend to live up to the same expectations that the first one did. I was messaging with someone on Instagram about this book, and we both felt that this book would be better served if the plot was more developed and spread over the course of 2 books. This one felt rushed, and it just seemed like she crammed so much information in there because she knew that she had to wrap up the story arc of Rain and Oriah. Which I think is funny that this one felt rushed and underdeveloped, and I think it was over 500 pages because this is the same author that wrote 6 Scorched Roses, who wrote one of the best stories I've read all year in almost 100 pages. That one was so well developed. You know, she fit in a whole story in such a short amount of time. I don't know, it just felt different. It felt really contrasty that one was a more developed story than this one. I don't know. I hope that makes sense. I don't know. I was just kind of disappointed in this one. It wasn't bad at all. It just didn't give me the same feeling that The Serpent in the Wings of Night gave me. The next one doesn't come out until next year, so I do plan on continuing with the series currently. Those are all the books that I read in April. Like I said, I didn't read as many books as I had in previous months, but that's okay because we are judging books on how much enjoyment I have, not how many I can cram into a month. At least that's what I'm trying to tell myself. So my neighbors are having their lawn mowed, so I'm going to make this quick. If you've made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It would mean the world to me, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!